Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now podcast, Don't Call It a Classic. Couple of albums that I feel comfortably calling classics. Let's do it.
Welcome to Hip Hop Now podcast. If you're from the future, you know what to do. Get your ass out of here. Don't disrespect the legend. Hip hop is here to stay. Let's get right into the business.
What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now podcast, a podcast specifically designed to keep you caught up on all things hip hop, music, and culture that happened throughout the week. Big shout out to those listening in audio form on iHeart Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts. We appreciate you. You know what I'm saying? Definitely subscribe if you haven't. But also a big shout out to those watching right here on YouTube. The channel is Hip Hop Now Pod. We are on the road to 25,000 subscribers by the end of 2025. And we are at 23,000, fastly approaching 24. Maybe by the time this drops, we'll already be at 24. But let's get right into the business and do what we came here to do now. In September, I wrote an article on my Substack called Don't Call It a Classic. It was a topic I was going to do as a bonus episode, which I'm doing right now, on the YouTube channel and on audio podcasting. But I kind of let it sit for a minute because I wrote about it and I wanted you to read about it. Now, I get it. Some people read. All they want to read is the title, and that's it. And I get it. But in general, as a hip hop fan, and I know you're a hip hop fan because you're watching, we like to talk a lot about classic albums. What's a classic? What isn't? But more importantly, is it too soon to call an album a classic? Now, old heads will tell you, you know, some of them will say something crazy like, you got to give it 10 years, dog. We don't even know if we'll be here in 10 years, okay? So let's not wait to have that discussion. Some people will tell you the minute they press play on one song, this joint is a classic. You're wrong also. But if we want to think about this organically as music fans, as hip-hop heads, typically, you know when an album is special. Sometimes you know based off of press and play and hearing the first couple of songs and saying there's no way this gets whack with the next couple of songs. Sometimes you know what's going to happen, right? Now, you don't run on social media and call it a classic, but you're listening, you like, this might be special, right? And then most of the time, you know, when you're done listening to one of these albums, you tell yourself, this is special. This is one of the best of the year. This could be an all-time album. But I think in a lot of ways, when people talk about classics, they really just like an album a lot, right? Whoever else likes it doesn't factor into their enjoyment of the album. But I feel like certain albums, when you call them a classic, they are without a doubt good, right? But also they're a moment in time, you know, musically. And this goes beyond hip hop, but they're a moment in time musically. Like when you press play after a year or 2 years, you remember the time when you first heard it. You remember what was going on, what the climate was, what everybody else was saying about the album. So to me, sometimes it's really easy to just look at an album and call it a classic. Now, granted, everybody doesn't have to like it, but if there's a general consensus among hip hop heads, and because we have the benefit of sometimes benefit of social media, then we can kind of get an idea of the really special projects based off of from our timeline and people who we see talk about albums and how they talk about this one versus that one. So with all of that being said, I decided to basically say, okay, since 2020, what albums I feel without a doubt comfortably calling classics. And that's what we're going to do here today. So if you read the article, good looking, share it with people. If you want to read the article, is below in the comment section. Please know that it's not a long, drawn out. I'm not writing a book about these things. I'm just stating the facts. But for the benefit of people who enjoy video, I'm going to share that with you right now. So let's get right to the business of things. Don't call it a classic album since 2020. I hope you can see that as I scroll through it. And I'm just going to read my introduction. You see the first one up there. Call me old school, not unk, but considering a hip hop album for classic status takes time. There are albums that prove they are special the minute you press play. It's rare, but it's possible. Since 2020, we've seen a lot of dope music, but there are albums that go far beyond such common praise. Shout out to all the content creators who've covered this topic previously. Here are a few albums between 2020 and 2025 I feel comfortable calling classics. First up, 2020, Stove God Cook's Reasonable Drought. I mean, some of y'all just discovered Stove God, and that's fine. I'm not trying to be elitist. Some of y'all just discovered him. But I wasn't necessarily one of those to run to it also, right? Shout out to the homie Kill. He's like, yo, listen to this new album, Stove God Cooks. I said, what kind of name is that? Like, what kind of name is that? It's called Reasonable Drought. Wow, you evoking the essence of another classic in Jay-Z's Reasonable Doubt. And then it also said produced by Rock Marciano. Now, those who know me, I'm not the biggest Rock Marciano fan when it comes to him as an MC. I don't hate him, but I'm not the biggest fan. But when it comes to the production, I think that dude holds the essence of boom bap in his soul. And this is Exhibit A through Z. This album, from the time you press play, especially if you know Stove God, it's everything you anticipated. The first track, what is it? Let me see what my write-up says, because I know I wrote it here. The brake lights joint, you know what I'm saying? I can't remember. But nevertheless, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to find it, okay? Give me 1 second. Rolls Royce brake lights, right? I don't know why I kept forgetting that. I was mixing it up with something else. But again, the minute you hear that beat drop and Stove God start flowing over that joint, I was like, okay, I could see why people like this. And yes, I know the cover's kind of crazy, but forget that. When I tell you, you press play, if you already like Stove God, if you're waiting for the new album, this would be worth your time. Next up, 2021 Nas and Hit Boy's Magic. This joint dropped on Christmas Eve, when we didn't know we were even getting another project, let alone within the same year from Nas and Hit Boy. And as you can see, the cover, throwback Nas with the fronts in the Queensbridge hallway. The album just captured that essence, right? Like from songs like Speechless, where the beat, you just like, wow, this is what we doing? Now, the reason why I call this a classic and I chose this particular Nas and Hit Boy album versus King's Disease 3, which I kind of also feel is like a classic. I think because this one was so, I don't know, it wasn't anticipated, right? We didn't know it was dropping. We didn't know what it would be. We didn't understand whether that cover meant something or not. But for anybody who wanted Nasir Jones to get as close to an Illmatic vibe in 2021, this was it. Dope concepts, beats, everything. Everything. It's basically damn near flawless. And for those who may say, oh well, if it's damn near, it can't be classic. Look, there's songs I skip on Illmatic. I'm not even gonna lie. Now, there's songs I used to listen to back in the days. But there's a song or two I'll just be like, skip. You know what I'm saying? So if I could skip songs on Illmatic, I could skip a song on Magic, but most of the time I don't. And I feel like this was almost just as impactful as King's Disease 3 that would be followed up the next year, I believe. But in its own, if you was around during like early Nas, like let's just say Illmatic dropped and then the aliens came and got you and put you in a time machine and put you in 2021, and this is what you heard, like, yo, this is what Nas is doing in the future, you'd be like, yo, he's still at it. Classic. Next, 2022, Freddie Gibbs, Soul Separately. I feel like Freddie Gibbs probably doesn't have a whack release. I mean, you can literally go through the majority of the albums he's put out, mixtapes, and feel, mostly albums, and feel like he just doesn't miss. And I didn't think he could do anything better than what he's done in the past. And I felt like anything he did up until this point would just be like more of the same, and not even in a bad way. But Soul Separately was special, especially the deluxe. Because I know some people don't like deluxe albums, but what I liked about the deluxe version of this album is a lot of the deluxe songs were released prior to this album. So when this was released, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little annoyed that those songs weren't on the album. And then they put them on the album in the form of a deluxe version. Now, this isn't the deluxe cover that you're looking at. This is the original. But when I tell you samples, beats, bars, fast, slow, concepts, humor, pocket, in and out of pocket. Well, he's always in pocket, but you know what I mean. Like his flow is just effortless over anything. I just felt like, not above all, but for 2022, if there was an album I had to call a classic, it's this one. And if maybe you know, always hear about Freddie Gibbs, but I don't know. I haven't really gotten into him. You know, I haven't listened to anything. What should I listen to? Start here, fam. There's plenty of places where you can start. Start here. You like this a lot, absorb it, go back and listen to other music. But I feel like this album is a classic. Next, 2023, Killer Mike, Michael. Now, we know this won a Grammy and all that good stuff. It was in my top 5 of the year, obviously, with the most of these projects I'm talking about. And some people like to do this thing on the internet that says, when's the last time you listened to it? It's their way of proving it wasn't as good as you thought it was. You were just caught up in the hype. I really hate that, because when's the last time I listened to Machiavelli? All Eyes on Me. I don't listen to classics every day, all day, even if they're new, old, or whatever. I got an extensive music collection, especially with hip hop, and I go back to joints. And you can go, if you haven't heard Killer Mike's Michael since 2023, when you go back and listen, you're not going to be like, it's not as good as I thought. It's great. It is great. It is as good as you thought. And for those who heard the new Daylight album and Killer Mike Get Busy on there, you can go to this album. You can go to Run the Jewels. This guy can rap. This guy is thoughtful in his raps, right? It's not just somebody who's nice. Him being nice on the mic goes without saying. it takes a little bit more energy to tell your story this deep into the game, right? Like, he's been in the game for a long time. He's kind of told his story, but he told his story in such a fantastic way that made it interesting for you to listen without feeling like, all right, man, where the joints at? Where the boom bap? Like, he kind of gave you everything, from hip hop to gospel, all types of vibes. And what I like about it is he's completely transparent and you believe him, right? Some people are going to tell you they came up through hard times and when they was locked up for 2 seconds, or when they was on a corner not really selling anything but sneaker money. Some people will embellish that. But the guys who make the special music are those who are vulnerable in their raps, who tell you about things that may not be the easiest to talk about. And I feel like Michael is just one example in hip hop of that. And in 2023, I feel comfortable calling it a classic back then and right now. Next, in 2024, Common and Pete Rock teamed up for an album called The Auditorium Volume 1. And I'm not even going to lie, I wasn't expecting anything monumental. I didn't know what bag Common was going to be in, whether he was going to be really basic with the bars. And he definitely showed up on this album. But Pete Rock is the all-star on this project. What he was able to do to capture the essence of hip hop history without being predictable, without it sounding like, oh, that's just another version of that song. No, everything was perfect, special. I mean, again, some people will say, when's the last time you listened to this album? Yesterday. Okay? It's great. I feel like Common got another classic on his hand, and so does Pete Rock. Auditorium Volume 1 is very dope. I'm assuming in 2026, we'll get Volume 2. Will it be a classic? Will it be as good? Who knows? But this one was special. So check it out. Brand new. I thought to myself, I even put an asterisk on the side of it. Maybe I'm just caught up in the hype. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe after this year, when we get other artists and other albums, maybe even this year when we get other albums, I'll like it and it'll probably be in my top 5, but I won't feel as bold to call it a classic. It's a classic, y'all. This is a classic. From the first record that locks you in from a relatable standpoint, whether your parents are still here or they passed, it's something that everybody will be able to relate to, because at some point in time, everybody is going to have to deal with that, right? So even if your parents are here, you probably think about it, and that song initially, I felt like, damn, why they start with that song? Maybe they should have ended with that. But I think that's what makes it so dope, because they start with that, they tell the story, you feel the pain, you connect with it. But man, when Chains and Whips starts, it is a ride from beginning to end. The bars, the flows, the precision in which they enunciate words so that lines and metaphors and every punchlines or whatever connect in ways that maybe it take you a couple of listens to be like, damn, I didn't even hear when he said that. Them telling their stories without blatantly telling every story. And most importantly, Malice with the comeback of the year. This dude is comeback of the year, MC of the year. I know what Nas was doing, rapping on every one of the 7 icons, 7 legends. And I know people, especially if this DJ Premier joint is Flames, will want to give it up to him. But I gotta stick with Malice, because when you've been out of the game in this way for this long, And everything you touch from this album to your features on Jid's album and Mobb Deep, and you ain't missed a beat, you sound better. This album's incredible, y'all. And last but not least, the simple fact that it's all produced by Pharrell. People love all the tracks. They love this album, but they be real slow to say Pharrell did it. Pharrell produced this whole joint. And I know people saying, yo, producer of the year, who, Alchemist. But the only reason why I wouldn't say Alchemist is only because he put out a lot. But everything ain't great. He just put out a lot of music. So it's kind of like he's overwhelming the category. But this is Pharrell's offering, this album. And there may be one track where people was like, I kind of don't like that one. I think it's All Things Considered. And I feel like I like that one too. I thought it was going to be the skip, but I let it rock every time. This album has extreme replay value. That's what's most important about all of these albums I chose. Extreme replay value. Excellent in almost every category. Beats, concepts, flows, everything. So there you have it. Those are 5 albums since 2020 that I feel comfortably calling classics. In the comment section below, I want you to put 5 albums from 2020, only 5, chill, just 5, that you, if, maybe gun to your head, you feel like, okay, this is a classic. Or maybe you feel comfortably calling them a classic. Even if you don't have 5, maybe you have 3 since 2020. Let me know what they are. You can follow me on social media at Vegas World INC and check out this podcast in audio form, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, and wherever you get your audio podcast listening. And right here on YouTube. Support the channel by subscribing. Become a member if you wanted to see this early, because this was available early to members. And content like this. Just know this about me, if you don't know. I'm not a critic. I'm a fan. Peace.